Afternoon. Please be seated. All right, we're here on the matter of Daria Brown and Chris Sutton Sr. Ms. Brown, would you come forward, please? And she would be seated at this table. All right. Mr. Sutton, is Chris Sutton here? Mr. Sutton, would you come forward, please? We're here for purposes of a consideration of a petition for peace order. Ms. Brown, Mr. Sutton, will you please raise your right hands and be sworn?
Do you solemnly affirm, under the penalties of perjury, that the responses given and statements made will be the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right, you may take your seats. Let me read the petition first. Is there anyone else here who's interested in this case? All right, Ms. Brown, you have filed a petition for a peace order. You don't have to stand. You can keep your seat if you'd like. You've indicated that you want protection from Mr. Sutton.
Yes, Your Honor.
Because of some things that happened. You want to tell me what happened? First off, tell me when these things happened.
It happened Friday night, January 31st.
All right, tell me what happened.
I got a phone call at home, and he said, "Do you know who this is?" I said, "Yes, I do." And like I indicated in the paper...
When you say he, who?
Mr. Sutton.
All right, did he identify himself?
I knew who he was on the phone.
Was, all right.
Yes.
Go ahead.
And he said, we were talking about the loan, and he said that you don't know who you're messing with, you mess with the wrong person. And I said, Chris, that's a threat. And I said, you owe the money. I said, do the honorable thing. And he started to say something about a friend of mine, Ann Anderson, who had lent him the money. And I just hung up. Then he called back, and my mother, who was in the courtroom...
About what time was the first call?
Approximately like 6:30. Anyway, this all started from like 5:30 to 7:30. It was a combination of him texting my friend Ann, and earlier he had text on my phone that said Daria is not to my phone, I'm sorry, to my friend Ann's phone that says Daria is digging her own grave. And that upset me. The phone call upset me. My mother is in the courtroom. She answered our home phone when Mr. Sutton called twice. When he called back, he said...
What time did he call back?
Like 5 seconds, yeah, almost like 5 seconds after I had hung up. My mother answered the phone again, and she said, Daria, Chris is on the phone. Again, and I says, no. I said, I'm not answering the phone again. I said, he threatened me. My mother said, Chris, Daria said that you threatened her, and Chris hung up on my mother. I come from a police family. My father was a Maryland State policeman. I did not want to do this, but to be perfectly honest, he is a policeman. He carries a gun, and I am very frightened for my life. The part about him saying, I'm digging my grave, and then the part where he says, you're messing with the wrong person. I'm out on the road all hours of the night, as is my daughter. The three of us live together. And my father's deceased now. And my father always told me that if someone threatens your life, no matter who it is, you have to go to the authorities and protect yourself. So if something does happen to me or my daughter or my mother, that at least they know where to start looking.
All right, and you live, what is your address? And what is Mr. Sutton's address?
I think it.
And how far away from you does he live?
Probably 10 miles. But he works for the Sheriff's Department and he's in the area all the time.
He is a sheriff deputy out there?
Yes, he is. And that makes me even more frightened that he carries a gun daily.
Anything else you'd like to say?
Just that I just really want to be protected, and I really cannot pay the fee, the $78 fee, and I would like Mr. Sutton or either the courts to not have me pay the fee or have Mr. Sutton pay the fee, since I'm not the one that initiated the phone calls or the texts.
Are you employed?
Yes, I am.
What type of work do you do?
I'm an alcohol and drug counselor,
Okay.
and I have my degrees in social work.
And you live with your mother, and I think you mentioned a daughter?
My daughter, yes, my daughter's a paramedic, and she also is out on the roads at all hours of the night.
Is your daughter the daughter of Mr. Sutton?
No, there's no relationship at all, no, and there never has been.
And your mother's name is?
Rose Brown. My mother's name?
Yes.
Rose Brown.
And your daughter's name?
Danielle Brown.
Tell me a little bit more about your relationship with Mr. Sutton. I hear something about a loan that was made.
Yeah, and we had been friends years ago, and in 2007 he called me and said, Daria, I cannot open my business because I need $10,000 more. He said, can you help me? I said, I do not have that money. I said, but I have a friend who has money. So I said, connected him with that friend, and then I stepped out of it. You know, I wasn't involved in it at all. When I called my friend and said, can you lend Chris the money? And she said, tell me about the business. She says, tell me what kind of person he is. She goes, well, he paid me back. And I said, he's in law enforcement. He said, when I asked Chris this, he said, you know me, you know that I certainly would never stiff anyone. I can't do that. You know, that's not the type of person I am. At that time, I really believed that he would pay the loan back.
So she made the loan?
She did make the loan to him. I didn't have anything to do with it. They met and made the loan.
And how long ago was that?
2007.
All right.
A year ago, about a year and a half ago, maybe last year, she called me and she goes, Daria, you know, Chris has never paid me the money. I said, oh my God. I said, are you kidding me? And she said, no. So I said, you got to pay the money back. You know, that's the thing. And I can't. And she goes, Daria, I'm out $10,000. So I got borrowed the $10,000 and paid her back. Because she only lent the money because on my word. That's not the type of friend I am, is to stiff a friend.
And what is her name, the lady that
Ann Anderson. And she lives in Delaware.
Now, have you had any contact with Mr. Sutton since you paid the loan off?
I have not seen him you know, I've seen him here and there on the road, no contact to talk to or anything. Several weeks ago, I had even forgotten about this. He had called my cell phone. I was at work. Then he had texted me, I'm sorry, he had left a message to call him. I had texted him back to say that I was at work and I could not talk to him at that time. I have not called him or texted him or anything else besides that, and I'd forgotten about that, to mention that. But
So you're telling me that several weeks ago, perhaps the middle of January, you got a call or at least a text from him and you didn't answer it?
I did not. I was at work because I was with a client. I couldn't answer my phone.
And nothing took place until January the 31st?
Exactly.
Friday.
When he started texting Ann Anderson about the loan, he had texted her back, called her, and then texted her back and forth. There were several texts, and then she called me and she says, well, I was trying to get the money out of Chris, and she said he had talked to me, and then she goes, when I made him aware of the fact that you had paid the loan off, he said, well, then it turned very upsetting and violent. In fact, my girlfriend called me and said, At this time, she goes, I am very worried about your safety. She goes, I am going to give you the $10,000 back that you paid me, and I will handle Chris. She goes, because I do not feel it's safe for you because of the texts that were going back and forth. And I did show the police the text on my phone.
Okay.
And they have contacted Ann about the text that he had sent her.
I take it you have no knowledge that she has attempted to get a peace order?
No, because I don't know if he has threatened her or not. I do not know that.
All right. Anything else you'd like to say?
No, I just really want some protection because I really am worried. It's very upsetting to me. I've torn my fingers up, the skin off my fingers from eating them and chewing. My nerves are a total wreck.
All right. Mr. Sutton,
Yes, sir.
what would you like to say, sir?
Well, Your Honor, as much as I would love to tell you my side of the story, I have obtained legal counsel, and at their advice was told to just go ahead and accept the temporary peace order, and my lawyers will be here Friday when it's scheduled.
All right. Anything further, Mrs. Brown?
Just that for Chris to pay the cost of the peace order.
All right. The court finds that on or about January 31st, 2014, that the respondent, Chris Sutton Sr., telephoned the petitioner, Daria Brown, at her residence about a loan that had been made to him by a friend of the petitioner, and indicated the following: you don't know who you're messing with, you're messing with the wrong person, or words to that extent. The petitioner, Ms. Brown, indicates that the respondent is a police officer and carries a service weapon, that she is frightened, was frightened, and wishes a peace order to avoid any further contact from the respondent, Chris Sutton Sr. Her testimony is undisputed, that she is frightened and that she was threatened and harassed by the respondent. And I do find that there is a likelihood that that conduct could continue. Apparently it has to do with a loan, a $10,000 loan that was made to the respondent, which the petitioner had something to do with in procuring a friend of hers to make the loan. The friend was an Ann Anderson, and it would appear the undisputed evidence is that Mr. Sutton was upset or unhappy about the fact that Mrs. Brown had repaid the loan. And without hearing anything further, I can only conclude that that was the reason that he made the call to Mrs. Brown on January the 31st, this past Friday. I will therefore, based on the finding that there is a likelihood that the conduct may continue, I'm going to issue a temporary peace order for a period of 1 week. We will be back in this courtroom on Monday the 10th? Monday will be the 9th. The 10th. We'll be back in this courtroom on Monday the 10th of February at 12:30 in the afternoon. Mr. Sutton, I would suggest that you have counsel with you when you come back
Yes, sir.
for the final protective final peace order, excuse me. And Mrs. Bryan, if you wish to have counsel, you may do so also. I'm going to defer on the issue of the fees until the final protective order, the final peace order hearing on Monday the 10th.
Thank you.
And we'll make that determination then. In the meantime, Mr. Sutton, you will not threaten or commit any of the acts that I have found that you did, such as threats of violence or harassment to Daria Bryan, or her daughter Danielle Bryan, or her mother Rose Bryan. The address is, that means no telephone threats, no verbal threats, no contact, no personal contact. You're also not to go to the workplace of the petitioner, which is, what is the address of this is a temporary peace order, and the limitation will be Monday the 10th of February at 12:30. Any questions?
No, sir.
All right, ma'am.
Thank you very
We'll
much,
see you
sir.
back here then.
Yes.
Thank you. Chris Sutton Sr. is case number 302 ST 692014. This is a matter that has been set for a final hearing on a peace order that was issued on February 3rd, 2013. The parties were here on February the 3rd, at which time I took testimony from Ms. Bryan, and based on the undisputed testimony at that time, I issued a temporary peace order that's go to the matter for final hearing today. At that time, Mr. Sutton indicated that he had obtained legal counsel and he wished not to state anything on the record at that time, or similar words to that effect. You're here today for the final peace order. Counsel, would you please identify yourself?
Yes, Your Honor. Good afternoon. My name is Sean Owens from the law firm Schlackman, Belsky & Wiener. I'm here on behalf of the respondent, Mr. Christopher Sutton. Your Honor, I have provided the clerk with a copy of my entry of appearance, and if I may approach the petitioner, I have a copy for her records as well.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, Mrs. Bryan, you're here without counsel. I take it you wish to proceed without an attorney?
I do, Your Honor.
All right. Would the parties please stand and raise your right hands, Mr. Sutton and Ms. Bryan?
Do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the responses given and statements made will be the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
So that you folks know who I am Judge Campion from Talbot County, which is a bit south of here, not quite as far south as the accent that I have came from, but I'm a visiting judge here on a matter that has been set for 2 weeks in the circuit court, and I was asked on Monday to come over on this matter. All right, Ms. Bryan, if you will, I would ask you to tell me what happened on January the 31st, 2014.
Your Honor, on that date, I received a call from my friend Ian Anderson, who is in the courtroom and who is the one that had lent Chris Sutton money. And she had sent me a text message that Chris had sent her stating that Daria has dug her own grave. And within a few minutes after receiving that text message, I received a phone call from Mr. Sutton. And it stated that he said, "Do you know who you're messing with?" And he said, "You mess with the wrong person."
What time was that call, ma'am, if you recall?
Approximately, the texts and the phone calls were going back and forth between Ann and myself. and Chris was calling Ann, Mr. Sutton was calling Ann in the meantime. It was anywhere between like 6 to 6:45, 6:30, somewhere around there.
All right.
My mother answered the phone, and she called me to the phone because he called on our house phone. I answered the phone, and that's when he said, do you know who you're messing? First he said, do you know who this is? And I said, yes, I do. He said, do you know who you're messing with? He goes, you've messed with the wrong person. I said, Chris, you owe the money, pay the money, and stop being an ass. I said, do the honorable thing. And I was very pissed, I was very excited, and yes, I did raise my voice. Then he said something about Ann had said something. I just hung up on him because at that point he had threatened me. He called back. My mother said, it's Chris again. And I said, I am not taking that phone call. I said he had threatened me. My mother said to Chris, she is not coming to the phone. You threatened her, and he hung up on my mother. So after that, I talked to Ann Anderson, and she said, Daria, I am giving you the money back that you paid me. She goes, I'm taking this on. She goes, you're in Maryland, I'm in Delaware. She goes, I am very afraid for you. She goes, this has gotten serious. Then Chris had texted her, look out, for me to look out. So she said, I am very worried about you. And I said, I am very worried about myself because Chris does carry a gun. And he had been in an altercation the week before at West End Gardens.
Wait just a moment. Chris did what a week before?
He had been in an altercation the week before at West End Gardens.
Did that have anything to do with you?
No, I'm just explaining, a progression of his aggression. And it's made me very upset.
I'm going to sustain the objection of that.
Absolutely, that's fine, Your Honor. I just was very afraid, so I went and filed a formal complaint at the police department, and then I got the peace order, the temporary peace order, because of the text messages, the things he said to me on the phone, and then the other threats that he made to me to Ann Anderson, who is in the courtroom today.
All right. Now, if you will, please explain what this loan is all about. I'm hearing something about a loan.
Yes, in 2007, Chris was opening up a business, and he called me and said, I can't open my business up because I need $10,000. I'm short $10,000. I said, well, I don't have that type of money. I said, I can connect you with somebody. He said, do you know anybody? I said, I can call a friend of mine. I said, but I'm out of it. That's between the two of you. He met with Ann Anderson. She called me and I said, he's respectable. He's a policeman. He said that, I don't have to worry about anything. He certainly will make sure the loan's paid back along those lines. Ann met with him and his wife. I think his wife was there. And she gave them a check for $10,000. Last year she called me and she said this loan has not been paid back. And I was pretty much in shock. And Ann goes, look, I'm out $10,000. She goes, I lent it to him on your word. And she goes, after meeting him, he guaranteed me that, he was an honorable person. So I gave her back the $10,000. I had to get a loan, gave her back the $10,000. And I've been making payments. Since then, Ann has given me back the money. And she has taken the loan back on her own self. So Mr. Sutton owes her $10,000 plus interest from 2007. And it's escalated from there because apparently when you do a favor for someone and help them, you get your life threatened. And Your Honor, I am very upset. He has made several statements to Ann Anderson about how he was going to get his friends to stop me and give me any tickets they can.
Object at this point, Your Honor.
Sustain. Ms. Anderson is in court, is she not?
She is, Your Honor.
Very well. Anything else?
I just want to get across to you that there's an escalation here of his temper, and I am very afraid, Your Honor. I'm afraid for myself, my daughter, and my mother. We live alone, and we live in the country. I go out all hours of the night because of the firehouse and my job, and I don't want to have to be scared every time I leave the house.
And what type of work do you do, ma'am?
I'm an alcohol and drug counselor.
anything else you'd like to say at this point? I may ask you to speak again.
Okay, not at this.
Very well. Cross-examination, Mr. Owens.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Brown, you had testified that these communications with Mr. Sutton occurred on January the 31st, 2014, correct?
Yes, I think that's the date. It was a Friday night, I think it was a Friday night.
Between 6:30 and 6:45 p.m.
I think they started with Ann around 5:30, 5:45, and then on my phone, I think it's between that time, yes.
Well, okay, and let me just be clear. I'm going to ask you some questions about your communications with Mr. Sutton, not with any communications that you believe he may have had with Ann Anderson, okay? The conversation that you had with Mr. Sutton, you stated that he called you and said you don't know who you're messing with, or
Yes.
something to that effect,
Yes.
correct? At that point in time, he hung up the phone on you, is that correct?
No, he did not.
Who hung up the phone?
I did.
Okay, and the conversation ended at that point.
He said, "You do not know who you're messing with." Yeah.
Okay. So...
Do you know who
during-
you're messing with?
Okay. So at no point in time during that conversation did Mr. Sutton threaten you with any act of physical harm or violence, correct?
To me, that is an act of violence.
He...
Threatening me, you don't know who you're messing with. Anyone could take that as a threat. Yes, I do take that as a threat.
He did not indicate any specific act of violence that he
No, he did not.
perpetrated against you?
No.
Okay. And you stated that he called back afterwards, and
Yes.
it was your mother that picked up, correct?
Yes.
And Mr. Sutton then hung up the phone on your mother, correct?
Yes, he did.
Okay. Mr. Sutton has not, since the date of January 31st, 2014, attempted to contact you at any other time?
He has not.
Okay. Now, with respect to this loan that you have testified to, is there any paperwork, any promissory note, any agreement, any contract, any document whatsoever pertaining to that particular agreement?
There's a canceled check.
Okay. Is there any sort of contractual instrument showing that he owes Ann Anderson or yourself any type of money?
He does not owe me any money. He owes Ann Anderson $10,000 plus interest.
Okay. And at some point in time, this loan that was taken out, you and Mr. Sutton were endeavoring to start a...
I was not.
Let me finish my question then. There was a dog training business that was supposed to be started, is that correct?
No.
What was the $10,000 for?
For him to go into business for a dog grooming business.
Okay. What was your relationship to that business?
I have no relationship to that business.
Okay. So you were not in any way, shape, or form involved with this business or with the money that Ann Anderson had given to Mr. Sutton, correct?
No, I was not.
Okay. Mr. Sutton has at no point in time taken any overt acts against you, and when I say that I mean he has not approached you in any threatening manner, is that correct?
Not since the protective order, no.
Okay. Before the protective order, has Mr. Sutton approached you in any threatening manner?
He has texted me and called me.
He has texted you and called you?
Yes.
And those were the calls that you previously testified to?
No.
correct?
About 2 to 3 weeks before then, he had texted me and called me and left a message for me to get in contact with him. And I said I texted him back, said I was at work.
Okay, but there was no threat, as you define it, involved in any of those contacts, correct?
No.
Okay. Court's indulgence for just one moment, Your Honor.
Certainly.
Ma'am, during the telephone conversation you had with Mr. Sutton on January 31st at approximately 6:30 to 6:45 p.m., is it true that, in fact, you told Mr. Sutton that he did not know who he was messing with?
No, I did not say that.
You never said that? Okay.
No, I did not.
Ma'am, do you know an Ann Stradalkis?
I do.
Okay. Who is Ann Stradalkis to you?
She used to be a friend.
Used to be a friend of yours?
Yes.
All right. Are you aware that Mr. Sutton is currently running for sheriff in Cecil County?
I am.
Okay. Do you recall approximately 1 year ago having a meeting with Ann Stradalkis in which you told her that you would do what you could to ruin Mr. Sutton's campaign?
No, I do not.
Okay. And when exactly was this loan? That was 2007, correct?
Yeah,
So
approximately.
So in your mind, this money due and owing Miss Anderson has been outstanding now for the better part of 7 years. Is that correct?
Yes.
And this text message that you're talking about, you received this from Miss Anderson, is that
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
How many text messages did you receive from Miss Anderson that were purported to have been sent by Mr. Sutton?
I don't know, 3 or 4.
Okay. And are you aware of the context of the conversation that took place between Ann Anderson and Mr. Sutton?
Yes, I am.
And that was about the repayment of the money, correct?
Yes.
And during the course of that conversation, there were various indications made that Ms. Anderson would retain an attorney, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And at that point in time, Ms. Anderson, strike that, at that point in time, you had actually given the $10,000 back to Ms. Anderson, is that correct?
Yes.
You had paid that debt, correct?
Yes.
And it was your intention at that point in time to seek some type of legal remedy against Mr. Sutton for the repayment of that money, correct?
I would hope so, yes.
Okay. So, just to put this into the proper context, you were intending to pursue a lawsuit against Mr. Sutton for the repayment of that $10,000, correct?
Eventually, yes.
Okay. And the context of the conversation in which Mr. Sutton indicated that you were digging your own grave was, in larger part, I guess part and parcel to the conversation about any lawsuit that would move forward for the repayment of the $10,000. Is that a fair statement?
I couldn't tell you what. I have no idea what he was thinking at the time.
Have you ever heard the expression, one is digging their own grave, in the past?
I have, and it sounded threatening then as it does now.
You did not actually receive that text message from Mr. Sutton, correct?
I did not.
Okay. Your Honor, I have no further questions at this time.
Yeah, well,
Your Honor, could I ask Chris Sutton some questions?
no, not at this point, not
Okay.
until he's on the stand.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Is there anything else you wish to say based on what Mr. Owens asked you?
No?
All right. Mrs. Anderson,
Yes.
would you come forward, please? Would you raise your right hand and be sworn?
Do you solemnly affirm under the penalty of perjury that the responses given and statements made will be the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Would you take the stand? Ma'am, would you state your full name and your address, please?
My name is Ann Elizabeth Anderson, and I live...
Now, Mrs. Anderson, you just heard the testimony of Mrs. Bryan
Yes,
regarding the events of January the 31st and regarding a loan that you made to the respondent, Mr. Sutton.
yes.
Tell me, if you will, if you received a call from Mr. Sutton or a text message from Mr. Sutton on January the 31st, 2014.
Yes, I did. It was a text message from Mr. Sutton.
And if you did, would you tell us what that message was?
The first text message was, "How are the pictures?" And I responded, "What pictures? Who is this?" Because I didn't save his number in my cell.
And do you have a copy of that text message?
I have it in my cell here.
You do? All right.
Well, the first one I deleted.
And that was, how were the pictures?
How are the pictures? Yeah.
And
I thought it was...
did you know who was sending that text? to
No.
you?
Then he called.
And tell me about the telephone call.
First he said, "Do you know who this is?" And I said, "No." That's why I sent the text, and he identified himself. And he...
And he identified himself as who?
As Chris Sutton.
All right. Did you know Mr. Sutton prior to that time?
Prior to the phone call?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, I knew him through Daria. She introduced us.
All right. And tell me what else was said.
He proceeded to ask me if I had taken pictures of him. I informed him that I was recovering from a broken leg. I had no idea what he was talking about.
Ask you if you had painted pictures?
Taken pictures.
Taken pictures.
Taken pictures, and I think they were posted on the Facebook or something. And then he asked me if I knew who had taken them, and I said no.
Okay. Anything further?
And then it went on to basically the money issue, which we had not really discussed before.
All right. And tell me about that conversation.
Basically, the conversation wasn't too bad. He said he wanted to maybe pay half of it or whatever, ballpark figure $5,000, whatever. And I did let him know that I was going to see a lawyer in about a month from now, but it had been postponed because of my broken leg. And that he and his wife should get together and set up a payment plan, and then we could go sit down and talk somewhere and just figure out how it was going to get repaid. I did not agree to the half payment or a partial payment because it's been so long. Towards the end of the conversation, I did let him know.
Let me ask you this before you get to that point. Did he acknowledge that he owed you the $10,000?
Yeah, oh yeah, yeah.
All right, go ahead,
Yeah.
please.
And I did mention that Daria's daughter, Danielle, had also borrowed the same amount in 2010, but that she had already paid it back. I did not set up a payment plan with her, but it was agreed upon that she would pay it back when she could, and that she has now paid it back. And he felt that because she lived at home and didn't pay rent and all this other stuff, that it was far easier for her to repay her loan than for him to repay his loan with mortgage payments and all that other stuff. And I said, well, you know, she goes to school, she paid for a vehicle, she helps out her grandmother here and there, so she does have a lot of financial responsibilities for a young girl, and it was paid back, and that's kind of embarrassing. But my intent was to get the money back, not to cause any trouble, not to cause any of all of this. And then I did let him know that Daria had paid me back. It had been a problem in her friendship, which we've been friends since grade school, so she wanted to make things better, so she paid it back. At that point, he did get angry.
What did he say?
Well, on the phone conversation, he said that she had been pulled over a couple of times, and to get out of a ticket, she used his name. And that if that should happen again, he was going to let his coworkers know to write as many tickets for her as they could. That she should not be using his name since they are no longer friends. And then after that, I just restated, please get a working payment plan with your wife and we'll sit down and talk. So we hung up the phone, and then I got some text messages, and one of them was where Daria is digging her own grave, because he was obviously upset. And my response was, you owe the money, it doesn't matter which one you owe it to, just pay back the loan. So then I get contact from Daria that he's called her and all this other stuff, so I just went ahead
Let
and...
me ask you this. Before you were contacted by Mrs. Brand, did you communicate any of this to her?
Yes, I did. I sent her the text, and I told her that this has gotten way out of hand. That it's a very simple issue. There was a loan made. It's been a long time. I have not heard from him. I have not moved, and I obviously have not changed my cell phone number, so it just needs to be repaid. It doesn't matter who gets the money, but I was concerned about her because they all live in the same small area, so I went ahead and cashed in some stocks, and I paid Daria back.
All right, so you forwarded the text that you received from Mr. Sutton to Mrs.
Daria.
Brand. Okay, and you say you got a call from her?
Yes, I did.
All right, tell me about that.
She just was kind of surprised that he had contacted me, Daria and I don't stay in contact that much anymore because of this issue. And I just said, you know, we talked a little bit, and I said that this is way out of hand, and that I need to do something to put this, just to stop it. If I hadn't broken my leg, I told her I would have already been to the lawyer, and I wouldn't have to deal with any of this. But it's just very simple. There's a loan that needs to be paid back. I wrote the word loan on the check. I can go get it from the bank. It just needs to be repaid. I don't want anybody threatened. I don't want any hard feelings. It's just very simple.
Very well. Mr. Owens, cross-examination?
Thank you, Your Honor. May I approach the clerk? I actually have copies of these text messages, if I might have them marked.
Certainly.
Thank you. We can just do one collectively. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Now, may I approach the witness?
You may.
Thank you. Sanderson, good morning, or good afternoon, rather. I'm showing you what has been marked for identification at this point as Respondent's Exhibit Number 1. Can you take a look at those for me and tell me if those are the text messages that you testified about?
Yes.
I'll let you look through it just to make sure that that is the full volume. I think it's 6 pages.
I think that's the end of it.
Your Honor, if I may move those in as Respondent's Exhibit Number 1.
Any objection, Mrs. Brown?
No, that's fine, Your
Have
Honor.
you seen them?
I don't believe she has, Your Honor, but may I, Ms. Anderson?
Sure.
And pending the petitioner's review, Your Honor. Now, we can agree that your conversation, your text conversation with Mr. Sutton that evening was with respect to this loan, correct?
It went well with me, yes.
Right. It was a cordial conversation that you had.
Yes, it was.
And it was with respect to the $10,000 that was owed, correct?
Yes.
And at any point in time during either your phone conversation or your text conversation with Mr. Sutton, did he make any overt threats regarding Ms. Brown's physical safety?
I just feel that Daria's digging her own grave is kind of a threat. To me, it would be.
Well, let me ask
It's not physical, but it has the intention. To me, there is an intent to do something.
Okay. An intent to commit an act of violence, or simply an intent to do something to perhaps ruin somebody's reputation or
Now
drag them
that
through
I
court?
can't tell, but to me, a threat is a threat.
Okay.
You know, here's the thing. In my opinion, you owe the money. You don't need to threaten or tell anyone they're digging a grave, or you're going to give them extra tickets, get your buddies to give them extra tickets. You've owed the money for several years. I haven't moved. I have a locked mailbox. Put it in my mailbox. There's no need for any of this.
And you discussed a payment plan with Mr. Sutton, correct?
No, I said you and your wife work a payment plan up, and then we'll sit down someplace and talk about it.
And at the time that you spoke to Mr. Sutton, you informed him first that Daria had repaid the loan, correct?
Towards the end of the conversation.
Okay. And what was his reaction to that?
He was angry.
Did he indicate that he had any prior knowledge that Daria had repaid the loan?
No.
Okay.
He also didn't know that it ruined our friendship, and we had been friends since grade school.
Okay, very well. Your Honor, I have no further questions of
Very well.
Ms. Anderson.
Mrs. Brown, do you have any questions?
Yes, and when you called me, when I talked to you that night, you had stated that you were very worried about my well-being.
Yes, I was, because I felt that under the circumstances, under the length of this loan, I had made one call to Mr. Sutton in 2013, being very upset that the business was sold. What are we, like, how am I getting paid back? I didn't know this. I heard it through the grapevine. And I'm not wealthy. I have 2 jobs. I have 3 kids. I'm trying to get 2 through college. I didn't feel that any statement about extra tickets or having someone dig their own grave was appropriate when you actually needed to just pay them back. That's all we were trying to do.
And when you did start getting those texts and everything, and you called me, that was one of your main intentions, was to let me know that you were worried for my well-being.
Absolutely. That's why I cashed in stock and paid you back, because I want to take you out of the loop. This is not appropriate any longer.
Thank you. That's all, Your Honor.
Do you have the questions of Mrs. Bryan?
No, Your Honor, I don't.
Very well, ma'am, you may stand down. Anything further at this point, Mrs. Bryan? All right, Mr. Owens.
Your Honor, may I be heard very briefly?
Certainly.
Yes, Your Honor. At this time, Respondent would make a motion to dismiss this petition for peace order. The situation is this. Ms. Brown, Ms. Anderson.
I know what the situation is. I've heard that. Tell me why I should dismiss it.
This is about a business deal gone wrong. There was no threat of violence that was overtly made here. Moreover, the question as to whether or not Mr. Sutton actually engaged in any act of harassment, clearly that has not occurred. The reason that has not occurred is because the only testimony that has come from Ms. Brown at this point in time regarding any conversations that she had with Mr. Sutton were that on the night of January the 31st, at approximately 6:30, 6:45 p.m., they had a very brief conversation. He apparently said, "You don't know who you're messing with?" He hung up the phone, or she hung up the phone. He called back. Her mother said, "She doesn't want to talk to you anymore." Apparently you threatened her. Never called back. That's not a harassment. You need to establish a course of conduct, and also, if a party who believes that they are being harassed gives instruction or asks that one cease and desist from further communications, it's only harassment when those conversations do persist beyond that point. Mr. Sutton, by Ms. Brown's own admission, never contacted her again. With respect to the quote that was received in the text message that someone was digging their own grave, I think, Your Honor, and Ms. Anderson testified to it as well. She didn't know exactly what that meant. She had some concerns for her friend. She called her, I think as most friends would do, but I think that in common figurative language, figurative speech, it's an idiomatic expression. One is digging their own grave. They're doing something, they're taking some action at present time that in the future may result in negative consequence. Here, we're talking about the shifting of this debt liability from apparently Ms. Anderson to Ms. Brown, which Mr. Sutton was not aware of. I'm sure he was angry at that point in time. But that...
Why would he be angry if somebody paid his debt off for him?
Well, because the point is, Your Honor, now the debt, at least the way I believe that Ms. Anderson and Ms. Brown are looking at this, is that now the debt has essentially been assigned to Ms. Brown. In other words, that Mr. Sutton now has to pay her off instead. So this was done without his knowledge. Now, Your Honor, that expression it's similar to one is making their own bed. While, yes, I think with hindsight he would have used different language had he known that this was going to happen, the fact remains that does not qualify as a threat of violence. And I don't believe that this is what the legislature intended when they came up with the idea to have ex parte orders in this form and fashion. There has been absolutely no contact whatsoever between the parties since that point in time. And I would also add, what this really boils down to is a question of how this $10,000 is getting paid back and to whom. And that's a question for probably another day in another courtroom. Thank you very much, Your Honor.
The question at this point is whether, based on the evidence that I have before me and giving that testimony any reasonable inferences, that I find that the respondent by clear and convincing evidence, has committed any of the offenses in section 31503, and those are enumerated. Number 2, 131503A2 is an act that places a petitioner in fear of imminent serious bodily harm. I concur with Mr. Owen that maybe it does not reach the level, nor can I infer that there has been harassment under Section 3803 of the Criminal Law Article, because he was told to stop, that she hung up on him, and that nothing took place after that. But I do find, under the circumstances, that the undisputed evidence is that the respondent did commit an act on January the 31st, 2014, that placed Mrs. Brown in fear of imminent serious bodily harm. She said she was afraid. She had gotten a text from her friend that said the respondent said, "You're digging your own grave," and he calls her and says, "You don't know who you're messing with." He's a police officer. He carries a gun. I find that at this point in the proceeding, the burden has been sustained by clear and convincing evidence without any other evidence before me.
Thank you, Your
I
Honor.
deny the motion.
Thank you, Your Honor. At this time, respondent would call Mr. Christopher Sutton.
Sir.
Yes, please. Your Honor, would you prefer that he testifies from the witness stand?
You
or-
can testify from right there. I
Okay.
permitted Mrs. Brown to do that.
Very well, thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Sutton, I'm going to ask you to keep your voice up at this time. Just make sure that we can all hear you. This is being recorded. Mr. Sutton, what is your full name for the record, sir?
Christopher Michael Sutton, Sr.,
Okay, and what is your date of birth?
11/6/69.
And what is your current address for the record? Mr. Sutton, are you employed, sir?
Yes, sir.
And what do you do?
I'm a deputy sheriff with the Cecil County Sheriff's Office.
And how long have you been working there?
21 years.
And do you know Miss Daria Brown?
Yes.
How do you know Daria Brown?
She was at one time a friend of my wife's and I's.
Okay. Generally speaking, since 2007, have you been involved in any business dealings with Miss Brown?
No.
Okay. Has Miss Brown provided you, strike that, do you know Ann Anderson?
Yes.
How do you know Ann Anderson?
She was introduced to me by Derry Brown.
Okay. Have you had any business dealings with Ann Anderson?
Yes.
And can you please describe those for the court?
She gave some money to a business that I was starting, Pampered Pet, and I believe today it was said one check at $10,000, but I think it was two different checks that totaled $10,000.
Okay. And what if anything has happened with your business since that point in time?
We have sold the business.
Okay. And what is the current status of that sale? I guess?
It's a lease to own.
Okay. Have you had any conversations at any point in time on or before January 31st of this year regarding repayment of this $10,000 sum?
Yes.
Okay. And to whom have you had those conversations?
Ann Anderson.
Okay. And when was the last time you spoke to Ann Anderson about this loan?
The last time, as of today, was
Yes, correct.
the Friday the 31st of January.
Okay. And what was the purpose of this conversation?
Well, our conversation I thought was very cordial, and it was to acknowledge to her that it was a sale. I didn't make any money on the sale, and I actually talked to her about, I appreciated that she loaned the money, and I wasn't making any money, and we would see if there was some kind of process we could set up to where, out of good faith, that she could get paid back.
How is it that Daria Brown became, strike that, did Daria Brown ever become part of the conversation that you had with Ann Anderson?
Yes.
All right. Why is that? Why did Daria Brown become part and parcel of this conversation?
Well, Ann had told me that it destroyed her friendship with Daria,
Mm-hmm.
and that they don't talk. And part of the conversation was there was things happening I thought maybe that Ann was doing, but it turned out it wasn't.
Okay. What things are you talking about?
Me being photographed out in the public and being posted. Conversations with people saying that I'm a deadbeat and I didn't pay the money back. And I actually thought that was Ann, and I was trying to resolve that with her. Like I said, our conversation was very cordial. and I wanted to see what we could do to rectify it, and then Ann said it was not her.
Okay. All right. Did there come any point in time during any conversation that you had with Ann Anderson that Daria Brown was mentioned?
Did she mention Derry? Yes.
Okay. Under what circumstances?
Well, like I said, with her friendship, that their friendship had been destroyed because of this, and I didn't know about our conversation on the phone. Like I said, was rather lengthy, and I thought it was very good. I was going to get with my wife, and it was set up to meet Ann at a later date to resolve this. And then shortly after the phone conversation, a text message came from Ann saying, "Now I know why the problem is. I forgot to tell you, Daria had paid me the money."
Okay. And what was your reaction to that?
Well, I was disappointed and upset a little bit that this whole conversation that I was having with Ann, like I said, was very well. I think she agreed with that. It was never mentioned to me that Daria paid her back until after she must have texted Daria, because I got a text from her saying, "Now I know what the confusion is. Daria's mad because she paid me the money."
Okay. And did you have any responses, once you learned that information, did you have any responses via text message?
Yes.
What was that?
And I think it was what we said is, she's the one now that I owe the money, and there could be court. And I made the comment that, well, she's digging her own grave.
Okay. And why specifically did you make that comment?
Well, it was almost like, okay, she testified here before, she didn't have money, wanted me to pay for the filing fees. So my whole point was, well, now she's going to have to get an attorney, and I'm going to have to get an attorney. She's going to have to take time off of work. Meant in the totality of the thing, she's taking on a burden that was really between Ann and I, not Daria and I.
Okay. At any point in time during any conversations that you had with Ann, did you make any threats of violence towards Daria Brown?
Not at all.
Okay. Have you in any way, shape, or form in the past 30 days, or the 30 days prior to filing this petition, done anything, taken any steps to cause any physical harm to Daria Brown?
Not at all.
Okay. All right. With respect to the conversation that Ms. Anderson testified about, in which you stated that you would have police officers issue tickets to Daria Brown, do you recall any conversation along those lines?
There was a conversation that happened between Ann and I said, I don't know what's going on with Daria, but, she's even been stopped by deputies that work for me. I didn't bring them in the courtroom today, and told that she was friends with Christine and I. And it's not just Daria. When you run for sheriff, there's a lot of people that are going to tell you they know you. My guys are told, you do your job. I don't care what they are. So I might have made a statement.
Your Honor, I object. That's hearsay. No one's here to verify that.
I agree.
Sustained.
Let me ask you this question. What specifically did you say to Ann regarding Daria providing other officers with your name?
It wouldn't be in her best interest to use my name if she got pulled over.
And why is that?
Because my guys have been instructed, anybody that uses my name, you do your job.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, sir.
Ms. Brand, do you have questions?
Since he did bring up the other officers, Your Honor, I haven't been stopped, and I was stopped.
I'm going to let you tell me that in a moment,
Right.
but do you have any questions of Mr. Sutton?
Yes, Mr. Sutton, did you borrow $10,000 from Ann Anderson?
Yes.
Have you paid it back?
No.
Has it been since 2007?
I don't know the exact date, but
What
that
year did
sounds
you-
roughly.
What
right.
year did you open your business up?
It was close to that. That's probably right. I just don't know the exact date.
Did you call my house twice on January 31st, the evening of?
Yes, I did.
Did my mother answer the phone both times?
Yes, she did.
Did you hang up on my mother
Did I hang up on her?
the second time you called?
When your mother's, I heard her ask you, Chris is on the phone. You said, I don't want to talk to him. She said, Chris, she feels you threaten her and don't want to talk to you. And I hung up.
That's all, Your Honor.
Anything further?
Your Honor, at this time, respondent would call Ann Stradalkis to the stand, please.
I just have one question of
Your
your
Honor.
client. I see the name Saris, S-A-R-I-S, Saris. Who is that?
That's, is it on the text message, Your Honor?
Yes, sir.
It's probably just an auto correction to say Daria.
I see. All right. So that would be,
There's no Saris that I'm...
that would be Daria.
Yes, sir.
I see. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Call your witness.
Ann Stradalkis, please.
You solemnly affirm under the penalties of perjury that the responses given and statements made will be the whole truth and nothing but the truth.
Yes, I do. Mr. Owens?
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon, Ms. Stradalkis. Could you give us your full name for the record, please?
Ann Karen Stradalkis, and I reside.
Spell your last name for the record, ma'am.
Strasdauskas.
Okay. And how old are you, ma'am?
60.
Okay. Thank you. Ma'am, do you know Chris Sutton?
Yes, I do.
How do you know Chris Sutton?
It involved with his campaign for sheriff.
Okay. How long have you known Mr. Sutton?
Since I moved here in 2005.
Okay. And Miss Daria Brown, do you know Miss Daria Brown?
Yes, I do.
And how long have you known Miss Daria Brown?
Probably about the same time.
Okay. How would you describe the nature of your relationship with Miss Brown?
Non-existent at this point.
Okay. Prior to this point, what was the nature of the relationship?
We separated friendship about a year and a half ago, and it was friendly.
Okay. Ma'am, at any point in time, have you had the opportunity to have any conversations with Miss Brown concerning Mr. Christopher Sutton?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And when was the last time that you had such a conversation?
About a year and a half.
Okay. And can you please tell the court what the sum and substance of that conversation was?
I was over at Miss Brown's house. We were having a visit, and she started a conversation about the fact that Chris had owed her friend Ann money. And she said a lot of things. I said, well, you know, Daria, we're all friends. And then she said that she made a threat against Chris, saying that she was going to do, because he owed Ann money, she was going to do everything she could at any open forum or place where Chris would be campaign for sheriff and cause problems for him.
Okay.
And at that point I said, well, I can't believe Chris would not resolve an issue concerning any loan or payment. I said, I was going to get to the bottom of it. And I called Chris.
Did you take any further action after that?
No, because I had separated friendship because she had called me and threatened me again. How could I do this, blah, 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 and that she was going to make sure that there was problems.
Nothing further, Your Honor. Thank you.
Questions, Mrs. Brown?
Yes, I do, Your Honor. And several times, Mr. Dowsess, when you came over to my house, did you come over because you had gotten fired from the sheriff's office and you were had no money and you needed food or to borrow money?
No.
You never borrowed money or gotten a box of food from me because you had nothing in your house to eat?
No.
You do realize that you were sworn in here and you're under oath to tell the truth?
Yes.
Do you remember having mail sent to my house because you did not want your girlfriend Carla to know that you had opened up another bank account and you didn't want her to know anything about that?
No.
Your Honor, I have no further questions for this witness because she's not telling the truth, so.
I'll be the judge of that.
Thank you.
Mr. Owens?
I have nothing further, Your Honor.
All right, ma'am, you may stand down.
Thank you.
Anything further?
Respondent's case, Your Honor. Thank you.
All right, Ms. Brown, briefly, do you wish to respond to anything that has been stated? I don't want to hear about...
No, I understand that.
A year and a half ago.
Absolutely, Your Honor. I totally agree. Your Honor, it still does not come across, take away from the fact I was threatened. I still feel threatened. I still, it hasn't resolved anything of the basic facts of the case. He called my house and threatened me. He sent a text, threatened me. It was, my friend Ann Anderson felt that it was a serious enough effect to pay me the $10,000
Let me
back.
ask you a question.
Yes, Your Honor.
The burden that I have here that has to be sustained is whether I'm convinced by clear and convincing evidence that not only were you threatened, but is there any likelihood that you will be threatened in the future? That's something that I have to wrestle with. Tell me.
Your Honor, I feel that nothing has happened since January 31st because the order is in effect. If the order is dropped, I can't say that he will not do something or have someone do something. I feel that the only time that I have felt protected and not really had to worry about anything is because that protective order is in effect. And I'm being totally honest with you.
Well, you're out of the loan equation at this point.
Absolutely, yes.
Anything else,
No, Your Honor.
Mr. Owens?
Thank you, Your Honor. Your Honor, two just brief points I'll make with the court. As we've agreed, I don't believe that we're dealing with an issue of harassment. This really boils down to, as Your Honor pointed out, the question of whether or not a reasonable person would be in fear of imminent serious bodily harm. Frankly,
Your Honor, I object to the wording reasonable person.
Well, he's giving his closing argument. I'll let you speak.
Thank you.
Overrule. Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Honor. So there are two questions. Number one is whether or not a reasonable person in the context of a conversation about an outstanding $10,000 debt and using a matter, really a figure of speech in common parlance of digging one's own grave, would consider that to be a threat, number one. Number two, does that constitute an imminent threat of bodily harm, which I would argue that it certainly does not. There has been no action taken at any point in time on the part of Mr. Sutton to physically place Ms. Brown in fear for her life or for her safety, or certainly for the safety of any others that she apparently resides with. Now, Your Honor, the second question here is, and as you pointed out, whether or not this is going to be a continuing course of conduct. Is it likely that this is going to continue into the future? Well, there have been obviously no conversations since this January 31st phone call to the Brown residence, number one. Number two, as the court did point out, Ms. Brown is no longer a party to this loan issue. I mean, I think what we're really dealing with here at the end of the day is two issues that are kind of becoming muddled together. And the question is going to be, ultimately, what does Mr. Sutton do to satisfy his obligation, if the courts find there is a legal obligation, to Ms. Anderson? The interplay between Ms. Brown and Mr. Sutton is, for all intents and purposes, over. But I would ask the court to find, at the end of the day, that granted, Mr. Sutton may not have exercised the best judgment in phrasing his response to Ms. Anderson in the manner of Daria's digging her own grave, but I would ask the court to consider that this is not a threat as one would, certainly in a classic form of a threat. This is a statement, this is a figure of speech that is used in all manner of speaking. Digging one's own grave is akin to, as I said, you sleep in the bed you make, for example. This is not literally she should go in her backyard, take a shovel, and dig her own grave because I am physically going to attack her or harm her in any way. And I would ask Your Honor to consider that in finding that no peace order need be issued in this case.
Mrs. Bryan, final word.
Your Honor, the text messages, and he has admitted to the text messages, he has admitted to the phone calls. I think the part where he's saying any reasonable person, people have been killed for $10, Your Honor. He carries a gun. He is in a position of authority. You heard him testify that he has talked to his officers. I would like the peace order to stay in effect just so I can have some peace of mind at night and during the day when I'm at work. That's all.
The court has considered the testimony that it had before it. And it's unfortunate that all of this is over a loan that should have been paid back long ago. As I understand it, the loan was made in 2007, that the petitioner here, Mrs. Brown, procured a loan for Mr. Sutton from her good friend, then good friend, Mrs. Ann Anderson. And when she learned from Mrs. Anderson that the loan had not been paid, she borrowed the money herself because she was embarrassed about the fact that she had entreated her friend to make a loan that, based on her representations, had not been paid back. The matter of the loan is now somewhat moot as far as Mrs. Brown is concerned because she's out of it. Out of it with the admonition that she didn't understand at the time, but she understands it now. No good deed goes unpunished. And ma'am, I will tell you that that rule holds true over and over and over again. Now the question is, for me, is whether the actions of Mr. Sutton, Officer Sutton, rise to the level of an act that did place Mrs. Brown in fear of imminent serious bodily harm, and that there is a likelihood that that will occur in the future. I find that based on the testimony, it does not. What Mr. Sutton, Officer Sutton, meant when he said you're digging, tell her, or she is digging her own grave, and when he called her and said you don't know who you're messing with, probably did frighten her. I'm convinced it did. In fact, I'm convinced that there is clear, convincing evidence that it did, because she is the only person that has told me how she felt about it. The question is, will it happen in the future? I don't believe that it will. And I'll tell you why. If it does occur in the future, if Officer Sutton is either through being naive or is not able to think through what the consequences would be if he did threaten you in the future, he should know that a assault or harassment or any of the offenses that are enumerated here, such as trespass or assault in any degree, could result in a protective order. And a protective order is another breed, a different breed of cat than a peace order, because a protective order requires a judge to order that all firearms be removed from the person of the respondent if that protective order is issued. And sir, I will tell you, I have had that happen. I had it happen with a state police officer who lost his job. Lost his job because his wife got upset with him, got a protective order against him, and they took his gun, and he couldn't serve as a state trooper. He lost his job.
Yes, sir.
So with that in mind, I'm going to leave the parties where I found them. I hope that what I have said has struck a chord, has struck fear in the heart of you, Mr. Sutton, Officer Sutton, because you cannot engage in that type of conversation with anybody as a police officer. It's inappropriate. And whether it's idiomatic or whether you didn't mean she's digging her own grave and you don't know who you're messing with, that may be fine at the Elks Club bar, but you don't say that to a lady if you're a police officer. You can't do it. It's going to get you in trouble.
Yes, sir.
And with that in mind, I hope you will take to heart what I've tried to do here. The loan is out of Mrs. Brown's hands. It is between you and Mrs. Anderson. And I'm not supposed to give you advice, but I'm going to do it. You get that loan paid as soon as you can, because you've acknowledged here today that you owe it. And even though 7 years is beyond the statute of limitations, he's acknowledged the debt. All right, is there anything else for
No, Your Honor.
Thank you, Your Honor.
I've believe that concludes this.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you.
I'm not sure that the petitioner can appeal this. I believe she can. I think either party can appeal it.
Correct, Your Honor. It's, I believe, de novo status in circuit court. Have a nice day, Your Honor. Thank you again.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Have a good day, Your Honor.
It's the same.